So passage 1 was not a very easy passage. Yes, a lot of you may have felt this. The language required a lot of interpretation. So let's see what the passage talked about. It talked about something called entropy, right? So the first paragraph defines what entropy is through various concepts. Okay, it gives a number of definitions of entropy. Then the second paragraph talks about the etymology of the word. Where does the word come from? Why did the person who named it entropy? It then relates this entropy to a poet, W.H. Auden. That how, when a war broke out in front of this poet, he came to this realization about entropy. So it was a post traumatic reckoning with the aftermath of the war. He came to this realization that entropy, or the undoing of being, the taker away of life, is what dominates all. Okay, it dominates all human beings, and no matter what a human being believes in, right? See, 80 million lives had gone unsaved in the war, right? So no matter what a human being believes in, what his or her ideals and idealisms are, we must die anyway. That is the realization that he had in the aftermath of the war. So, to reflect this realization, he revised the line of his poem. What did he write? So, initially, he had written, "We must love one another or die." That was the final line of the penultimate stanza of his poem. We must love one another or die. Then he changed it to read, "We must love one another and die." Okay, so this is what this passage is about. It begins with the concept of entropy. You don't really anticipate that it will be related to the life, to the realizations of a poet, but that's how the passage proceeds. So let's see how the questions are easy, difficult. Question 2. Why has the author called the alteration in the poem or by Auden as the single most poignant one word alteration in the history of our species? This has been stated, this sentence has been stated in the paragraph towards the end. Right? Let's read the options. It symbolizes Auden's writing prowess, his writing skills, such that the alteration reflected the changed circumstances of his time. Okay. It reflects Auden's emotional post traumatic coping with the aftermath of the war, where he has the revelation that everything comes to an end. Okay. It represents his sorrow and distress on the post war realization that all human beings must die no matter what they believe in. It shows his struggle to cope with the protracted is something that's stretched beyond its usual time. Okay, so delayed and stretched. It shows a struggle to cope with the protracted post war reality that entropy is all that dominates human beings. Okay, so when I read option D, entropy is all that dominates human beings, this means that nothing else dominates human beings. Entropy is all that dominates them. But that is not what I remember reading in the passage. The passage says that fine, entropy dominates all, everyone. That was there. But entropy is the only thing that dominates. It is all that dominates. That was not given. So this is distorted. When I read the options, I gauge this right away. Okay, let's look at the other three. So, what was the alteration? When I told you about the summary of the passage, I told you the alteration was that initially in the, let me just show you that paragraph itself. Initially, in the final line of the second last stanza, the original version, the line read, "We must love one another or die." Then what happens? Let's read. So he thought, he wrote this line thinking that, for him, it was an impassioned plea for compassion as a moral imperative. He felt that compassion was morally necessary, the withholding of which assures the destruction of life. So if you're not compassionate, that will lead to destruction of life. But this plea, okay, this plea of his for compassion, this appeal of his for compassion had gone unanswered, and 80 million lives had gone unsaved during the war. Auden came to feel that his reach for poetic truth had been rendered a damned lie. So basically, he felt as if what he had written was a lie. later lamenting that however our ideals and idealisms may play out, whatever our beliefs, our ideologies may be, we must die anyway. A decade of disquiet after the end of the war, he changed the line to read, "We must love one another and die." That means this change reflects this understanding that we must die anyway, right? No matter what we believe in, no matter what our ideals and idealisms are. Right. So that is why the author calls it a poignant one word alteration. Poignant means something that's very emotional, sad, full of regret. That is poignant. So it's a very sad realization that the poet came to. Okay. So let's have a look at the options again in the light of this. So the first line says it symbolizes his writing skills. On reading this paragraph, I don't think that he just wanted to show his writing skills. That's why he made this change. So it this is not the main point. This is not the main point. This is not why the author has called it the single most poignant one word alteration. Okay, so eliminated. So I think that A and D should have been eliminated right in the beginning. Coming to B and C. Now, B says that it reflects Auden's emotional post traumatic coping. Okay. And where he has this revelation that everything comes to an end. Didn't we talk about human lives being destroyed, human lives going unsaved? We must die anyway. We are again talking about human beings. So, isn't everything a little broad? Also, one more thing that I noticed was that he remained quite in a state of disquiet, right? He remained in a state of disquiet. Whether he actually completely coped or not, we don't know. So I have a problem with coping. I have a bigger problem with everything. It's too broad. I'll eliminate this, right? C is the answer. It actually, yes, it represents his disquiet. His when he feels that what he had written had been rendered a damned lie. We are using the word post-traumatic. So sorrow, distress, all of those are reflected there. So his post-war realization that all human beings must die, no matter what they believe in. This is why he changed that line, and this is why the alteration is such a is the single most poignant one word alteration in the history of our species, as per the author. Okay, so C is our answer. It is the closest to what the passage says. The other options are broad, distorted, or just not the point of the author. This question did require some elimination on your part, so I would call it a moderate question.